Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and Happy New Year on this depressing New Year's Day in Philadelphia, if you're an Eagles fan. But welcome into the Legal Hands to the Face show with Bill Colarulo. We are streaming live on the JAKIB Sports Network. We are live on the Legal Hands to the Face YouTube channel, TikTok channel, Instagram channel, Facebook channel. We are live everywhere to break down the disaster that is the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And we've been talking about it for a few weeks on this show. And if you follow me on social media or you follow my other show, the Philly Sports Power Hour, I have been saying now for weeks that this Philadelphia Eagles team has been trying to tell us who they were all season long. And we kept ignoring it because they were winning. We kept ignoring the problems with the offense because they were winning. We kept ignoring the issues with the defensive personnel because they were winning. And now, after being dominated by the 49ers, dominated by the Dallas Cowboys, upset by the Seattle Seahawks, and then unthinkably upset by the Arizona Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon in your own stadium, everyone in this city is realizing what this team has been trying to tell us all season long. They are not a good football team. They lack personnel on defense, and they have some really bad coaching on offense. And we're going to get into all of it tonight. I see a lot of the Legal Hands to the Face crew checking in on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and I appreciate all of you guys being here. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button for me. The more Eagles fans we could reach, the better. But I want to talk a lot tonight about who is to blame for what we're seeing here in front of us. What was such a promising season going into this year, starting off 10-1 with Super Bowl aspirations, how quickly it has fallen. But who is to blame for the predicament that this team finds themselves in right now? And all of us who are here bleed green. And you talk about an Eagles team that decided to ruin our holiday season. Started before Christmas and came right on through New Year's Day. Thank you, Eagles, for ruining our holiday season. But we'll talk a little bit about that Cardinals game. I want to go through some of the things that occurred. And then I want to get into who is to blame for this mess. So the Philadelphia Eagles lose the game 35-31 to Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals, who are not a good football team. But unfortunately, we are realizing either are the Philadelphia Eagles. And some of the things that the Cardinals were able to do to this Eagles defense is historically bad. I sat here all day today. We did the Philly Sports Power Hour this morning. And I sat here thinking about what defensive performance can I remember in recent history that was as bad as what we saw yesterday on New Year's Day from this Philadelphia Eagles defense. And I can't remember one. If you're here in the chat please comment if you remember seeing a defensive performance as bad as what we saw yesterday. You were going up against the 24th ranked offense in the NFL, who didn't even have their number one wide receiver, Marquise Brown, because he just got put on IR. And you let this team, who was only averaging 306 yards a game coming in, put up 450 yards of offense. They dominated your defense. And I see Eric Smith in the chat answering my question about a worse defensive performance. And he brings up Juan Castillo. Great pull, Eric Smith. And for those of you who don't remember the whole Juan Castillo experiment, it was when Andy Reid decided to take our offensive line coach and make him a defensive coordinator. So we are seriously going back to that disaster, saying that that's the only thing we can think of that was as bad as the defense that we just saw on what is supposed to be a Super Bowl contender in our Philadelphia Eagles. And you just let the Arizona Cardinals put up 450 against you. And coming into this game, if you follow me, you know I was posting videos about this on Instagram, that one of the concerns I did have for that Cardinals offense was that they did have an ability to run the football. They were a top 10 rushing offense. And you look at this Eagles defense, the one thing that we had been hanging our hat on, as bad as this defense had been this season, the one thing that statistically they did well was not let teams run the football. You look at the first 9 games of the year, the Philadelphia Eagles only let one team rush for over 100 yards. One. They were averaging 66 rushing yards against through the first 9 games. Everything else was terrible about this Eagles defense. The pass defense was bad. Their third down defense is historically bad. Their red zone defense was bad. But at least we could say they could stop the run. Well, that was the first 9 games of the season. You look now at the last 7 games. Every single opponent has rushed for over 100 yards against this Eagles defense. Every one of them. The Eagles are giving up, on average, over 150 yards rushing in the last 7 games. A team that was averaging 66 rushing yards against through their first 9 is now giving up over 150 a game in their last 7. They can't do anything right. Anything on defense. Third down, one of the worst third down defenses in the league. And you look at the numbers coming out of the Arizona game, 5 of 10, 50%. That would be one of the worst in the NFL. But for this Eagles team, 50% doesn't sound too bad after some of the things they've been doing. But when you take a step back and look, the reason why the Cardinals were only 5 of 10 on third down is because in that second half, they never even made it to third down. In the second half of the game on New Year's Eve, the Arizona Cardinals on second down were 11 of 13 with 2 touchdowns. 11 of 13 on second down. That's how bad things were for this Eagles defense. Not only could they not get off the field on third down, they couldn't even get to third down against the Cardinals. We would have killed for a third down in the second half. This defense stinks, and they've stunk all season long. And it's not only been bad on third down, it's been bad in the red zone. And you look at the first half yesterday, the Eagles have a 21-6 lead. And the reason they have a 21-6 lead, even though they were being dominated, was because the Cardinals couldn't convert in the red zone. The Cardinals were 0 for 2 in the first half, even though they went on long drives. They were 0 for 2 in the red zone. They came out in the second half and went 4 for 4 in the red zone. This defense stinks, and they've been bad all season long. This isn't just something we've seen for 1 or 2 games or even 3 or 4 games. It's now been 16 games with this defense. And you look at the drives that the Arizona Cardinals were able to put up. 14 plays, 8 plays, 16 plays, 10 plays, 9 plays, 8 plays. The shortest drive they had, the shortest drive the Arizona Cardinals had was their last touchdown-winning drive. It only took them 7 plays to go 70 yards and score a touchdown. Embarrassing what this defense did on New Year's Eve in Lincoln Financial Field. And I want to talk about who is to blame for that defense later on in the show. Because I look at this team, and on defense, I'm blaming Howie Roseman. And we'll get there. But I think this defense severely lacks the personnel. And I will go through it with you. I will give you the facts. I want to talk about the draft picks over the last few years and why the Eagles find themselves in the predicament they find themselves with this defense. But that's the only thing I'm putting on Howie Roseman is on the defensive side of the football. Because you look at this offense, and I talk about a lack of personnel on defense. You look at this offense, and it's anything but a lack of personnel. You should have one of the best offenses in the NFL when you look up and down that roster. I'd put that offense up against any offense in the league on paper. But the problem is they turn the keys of a Ferrari over to 2 guys who have no clue how to drive it. And that's Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. And if you guys follow the show, you know I'm a big fan of Nick Sirianni. I thought what he did the first 2 seasons was incredible. The culture he built. And now what you're seeing are some real cracks in the foundation of that culture. And we'll get there as well. But let's talk about this offense. Because all season long, you look at the final numbers and you start to think to yourself, okay, statistically, they're not that much different than where they were on offense. You look at the points per game and the yards per game. It seems to be pretty similar to last year. But if you watch the games, you knew something was off. You could just tell something isn't clicking. It doesn't look smooth. There looks like there's no rhythm to the offense. And I think it's because this offensive coaching staff, and it starts with Nick Sirianni and it goes to Brian Johnson, have zero situational awareness. Zero. We saw it against the Washington Commanders earlier in the season when they threw that deep ball to A.J. Brown to score a touchdown when what they needed to do was run out the clock. You saw it against the Seattle Seahawks, taking a deep shot to Quez Watkins when you didn't have to. Taking a deep shot to A.J. Brown when all you needed was 13 yards. And I'm not absolving the players. Jalen Hurts needs to play better. The offense needs to play better. But in my opinion, this is what you get when you have an offense that doesn't trust the offensive coaching staff. When you have an offense that doesn't trust the game plan, the schemes, the play designs, the play calling, and the philosophy of always going for the big play, the explosive play. That's all you hear from Nick Sirianni. But because of it, they lack situational awareness. And you look at that game yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals. The offense didn't play badly for a majority of the game. They didn't have a lot of opportunities because the defense was on the field so often. The defense couldn't get off the field, so the offense didn't get a lot of opportunities. First half, they go 3 and out to start the game. You don't like to see that. And then they score on their next 2 drives. They only had 2 more drives in that first half. Defense couldn't get off the field. Sidney Brown had that great 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, the only highlight from the defense all day. But they had a 9-play, 75-yard drive in the first half. The offense gets the ball with under 2 minutes. They go 9 plays, 75 yards in under 2 minutes, score another touchdown. They only had the ball for 8 minutes. And again, you look at the final numbers and you say, okay, offense didn't play bad. But they have zero situational awareness, and this is what I'm talking about. Jonathan Gannon ties up the game and makes the decision to kick an onside kick with under 5 minutes left in the game. You're in a 28-28 game. Your defense has been unable to stop the Cardinals all damn day. You know, in that situation, you need to score a touchdown. A field goal isn't going to hold against this Cardinals offense the way they were dominating your defense. And this is where Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's ridiculous play calling shows its ugly head. They get down to the 20-yard line with under 4 minutes left in the game. They call an outside run to the left. Jordan Mailata takes a penalty you cannot take in that situation. You can't put yourself behind the sticks. So now they're at 1st and 20. Not ideal. But Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's next 3 play calls. At that moment, in a tie football game where you know you need a touchdown, these next 3 play calls make me question the entire offensive coaching staff and are a microcosm of what we have been watching all season long with this offense. 1st and 20. They call a designed quarterback run with Jalen Hurts that has no pass option built in. Your quarterback at that point in the game was 15 of 19 with 3 touchdowns. Hurts actually played pretty well against the Cardinals. I'm not putting this loss on Jalen Hurts. I thought Hurts played well when he had his opportunities. He's 15 of 19 at that point in the game. It's 1st and 20. You call a designed quarterback run with no pass option built in. He picks up 4 yards. You're now 2nd and 16. And Brian Johnson and his brilliant offensive mind says, let's do it again. Let's call another quarterback run with no pass option built in. Jalen Hurts now loses 3 yards. So now you're at a 3rd and 19. Again, remember the situation, situational awareness. You need a touchdown. Your defense can't hold the Cardinals. They've been dominated all day long. And on a 3rd and 19, Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni decide to call a short screenplay to Kenny Gainwell to get in better field position for a field goal. Are you kidding me? Against the Arizona Cardinals, those are your 3 play calls. 3 straight. Quarterback run, short running back screen, let's kick a field goal. And every single one of us watching that game knew what was about to happen. Cardinals get the ball, and they drive right down the damn field to score a touchdown and win the football game. This offense is way too talented. When you look at the personnel across the board of this offense, there is no reason why this offense isn't completely dominating games from start to finish. It's the offensive philosophy, the game planning, the play calling, the schemes, and that comes from Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. I don't blame Jalen Hurts. I don't blame the players. They can't be completely absolved. Yes, players need to play. But when I see this offense, they are too damn good for what you're seeing on the field. Let's just look at the roster. Look at the offensive line. You'd put that offensive line up against any offensive line in the NFL. You got Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson. I'd put that offensive line up against any offensive line in the NFL. Then you look at your outside receivers. We debated all offseason that the Philadelphia Eagles have the best wide receiver duo in the entire league. think there's a couple of teams that may be better, but not by much. You have one of the best tight ends in the NFL in Dallas Goedert. You added DeAndre Swift, who's an obvious playmaker to that offense. They don't like to use him, but he's there. And then you have Jalen Hurts, who I still have faith in. I know there's a lot of fans out there, a lot of fans who don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer. I still do. I think you're seeing a team that is lost trust, lost belief in their offensive coaching staff. And that is why you're seeing them not execute on the field. That's why you have guys like A.J. Brown refusing to talk to the media. And he made it clear yesterday to the media, I'm not talking, and it has nothing to do with you guys. This is a team that has lost faith in their coaching staff. And that is scary. That is really scary. And I want to talk about Nick Sirianni, because one of the things that I always gave Nick Sirianni credit for was the culture that he has built. And that culture looks real shaky right now. You're seeing things that we have not seen from a Philadelphia Eagles team in a long time. You're seeing leaks come from the locker room a few weeks ago to Derek Gunn right here on the JAKIB Sports Network about them becoming predictable. You're hearing Jalen Hurts a couple weeks ago talking about how they need to be more committed. You have rookies talking about how they're doing things in practice that are showing on the field. This is a problem. And you have a coach who I really liked. And if you watched his press conference today, he looks lost. They asked him today at the press conference if he thinks he should have been a little bit more aggressive with that drive that I just went through with you guys when they got the ball back after the onside kick. And you're listening to his response. First of all, he just goes on and on and on and on, questioning himself. Yeah, I should have done something different. Yeah, he's lost. How do we expect these players to have confidence in him when it doesn't sound like he has confidence in himself? And that's the part of this whole thing that has me really nervous. Because you're going to start to lose guys. And I'm not only talking about for this season, I'm talking about for next season. You think guys like Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, who have been here for so long, who provide that great veteran leadership in the locker room, Jason Kelce still playing at a high level, you think those guys are coming back next year with the mess we're watching happen right in front of us? That has me concerned. That has me really concerned. Sorry, guys, and I've been going. I appreciate all of you here. When this is over, we will take the audio, upload it to all your favorite podcast platforms. So you may be listening to the podcast. If you are, leave us a review on any podcast platform you're on. Really helps us reach more Eagles fans. But I appreciate everybody here on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We are live everywhere. And it just sucks that we're sitting here on New Year's Day, not looking forward to the playoffs, not talking about another NFC East championship for this team, but we're all sitting here thinking, what the hell is going on with this Eagles team? And I have concerns that go even further than just this season. And that is not an overreaction. We are seeing things that are unprecedented. I got this stat from Reuben Frank. The Philadelphia Eagles are now the third team ever. There's only been 3 teams ever in a 16-game season to open up 10-1 or better and then lose 4 of their next 5 games. You got to look at the 2020 Steelers and the 1986 Jets. That's it. This team has a lot of problems. And we've talked about the culture. and we've talked about the offense. And I really want to talk about the defense, because I definitely put the blame on offense with the coaches. We just talked about Brian Johnson. We just talked about Nick Sirianni. But when I look at this defense, I'm blaming Howie Roseman. And I did a video about this on Instagram. I had a lot of people coming at me saying, bad take, bad take. Well, I want to explain to you what I'm talking about with how bad things are on that defensive side of the football and why we find ourselves in this predicament. And I asked the question a few weeks ago, before all of this started to unfold. I started to ask the question here on this show and on my Instagram. Is this a championship defense? Are they talented enough to be a championship defense? And then we saw them get dominated by the Niners and dominated by the Cowboys and give up a 92-yard drive with less than 2 minutes to a backup quarterback in Drew Lock. You saw them try to give the game away to Tyrod Taylor and the New York Giants last week. And now you just saw the Arizona Cardinals come into your house at Lincoln Financial Field and embarrass your defense. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want to talk to you about why I blame Howie Roseman for what we're seeing on the defensive side of the football. Hit that like button, hit that share button. We'll be right back, guys.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show with Bill Colarulo on New Year's Day. Appreciate all of you guys spending this hour with me on New Year's Day. Outside of the Philadelphia Eagles disaster, I hope everyone had a great New Year's Eve. Hope everyone was safe, spent some time with family. If you guys are making some New Year's resolutions, my advice, write them down. I talked about this on the Philly Sports Power Hour today. The research is irrefutable. You are so much more likely to accomplish your goals if you write them down in a place where you could see it often. So Google it. The research is irrefutable. Write down your goals. So hopefully you all make some good resolutions. Have a great 2024. And if this is the first time you've tuned in for the Legal Hands to the Face show, make sure you are following me on all your favorite social media platforms. We post daily content, multiple pieces of content a day on our Philadelphia Eagles. So you can check us out on Instagram at Legal Hands to the Face, Twitter at Bill Colarulo, YouTube, Legal Hands to the Face Sports Talk. We are everywhere. We're even on TikTok live right now with our live TikTok audience. And you could also check me out live on the JAKIB Sports Network every Monday through Friday, 10 to 11 a.m. on the Philly Sports Power Hour. Tomorrow, we are going to be joined like we are every Tuesday on the Philly Sports Power Hour by Dave Spadaro, Eagles insider. He's always positive. I'm really curious to see how he's going to be positive about this team right now. So tune in tomorrow, Philly Sports Power Hour, for Dave Spadaro. But I appreciate all of you guys here. And before the break, we were talking about the offense and how I blame the coaches, Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson, for what we are seeing on the offensive side of the football, because there's just so much talent on that side of the ball. And I don't care about the final statistics. They lack situational awareness, and we've seen it time and time again. Bad clock management, bad play calling, bad decisions. And that comes from the top, Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. But when we look at this defense, I said it a couple of weeks ago on the JAKIB Sports postgame show that I don't care if Jim Johnson was the defensive coordinator on this defense. I don't think they have the personnel to compete. And we're seeing it week after week. They move on from Sean Desai. They name Matt Patricia the coordinator. Has that done a damn thing for this defense? This defense stinks because Howie Roseman ignored multiple positions on the defensive side of the football, and his inability to draft defensive talent is coming back to kill this football team. Let's start with the positions that were ignored this season. And this isn't hindsight being 2020, guys. If you follow me, you know I was posting videos all summer long about the linebacker position. I was not happy that they let TJ Edwards walk. The moment he signed with the Chicago Bears, I wasn't happy. TJ Edwards was a guy who played over 94% of your snaps last year, wore the green dot, led your team in tackles, and you let him walk out the door. And I don't want to hear it was because he wanted to go back to Chicago. If you valued him and you wanted him here on this football team after going to a damn Super Bowl, there's no way TJ Edwards is going to Chicago. So Howie Roseman made the decision on a team with Super Bowl aspirations to go into this year and completely ignore linebacker. They put all of their hopes in Nakobe Dean, who played 34 career snaps before this season. And again, this isn't hindsight being 2020, guys. I did videos on this all damn summer, and I had people commenting underneath, Nakobe Dean's going to be a stud. Nakobe Dean's going to be a beast. And I kept saying, I hope you're right, but we don't know. And to go into this season, putting all of our hopes on a guy that we haven't even seen play yet was criminal on a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And then what happened? Well, before we even get to training camp, Howie Roseman did do one thing at the linebacker position. The Chicago Bears, who let their starter walk out the door because they thought they made a huge upgrade in TJ Edwards, the damn Chicago Bears upgrade their linebacker position with our damn linebacker. Howie Roseman says, I'm going to sign their starting linebacker that they didn't want anymore, and brings on Nick Morrow, a guy that they had a cut in training camp, who was able to be put back on their practice squad because no one else in the NFL wanted him. So that's who we went into the season with at linebacker. And then during training camp, when it became clear that they had some serious problems at the linebacker position, Howie Roseman went dumpster diving. Who's still available? Okay, let's bring in Miles Jack off the street. Miles Jack retired a week or two after they brought him in. Somehow he's back in the league. Clearly just didn't want to be on the Eagles. Then they say, okay, let's find another one. Zach Cunningham. Let's bring him in too. And then when it became clear that Dean wasn't the answer, and Morrow was hurt, and Cunningham was hurt, and Miles Jack retires, and Christian Ellis gets picked up on waivers by the Patriots, and you're left with only Ben Van Sumeren, undrafted rookie who played fullback until 2 years ago. Howie Roseman says, okay, maybe I got to do something else drastic. Let's sign a guy that the Indianapolis Colts, who were in a playoff chase, decided that they didn't even want him anymore. Even though they were still going to be on the hook for his contract, they just go and cut Shaq Leonard. And I was hopeful maybe we got lucky. Maybe Shaq Leonard still had something left in the tank. And you saw some flashes last week against the Giants. But he didn't look good against the Cardinals, and he gets hurt. And what we're seeing at the linebacker position falls squarely on Howie Roseman. And I don't want to hear the same argument I've been hearing all day on Instagram. Well, he can't pay everybody. Linebackers don't cost a lot of money in this league. They don't. You ignored the position entirely. You didn't only devalue it and say we're not going to pay a lot of money for the position. You just flat out ignored it and thought that you could dumpster dive and bring in anybody. And then what he decides to do is not only ignore the linebackers, let's also ignore the positions that play right behind the linebackers. Let's ignore the safeties too. This is where the arrogance of Howie Roseman comes in, that comes back to get him. And I am a Howie Roseman fan. I praise this guy when he deserves it. But if I'm going to praise him when he deserves it, I'm also going to lean into him when he deserves it. And he deserves a lot of the blame from what we're seeing on that defensive side of the football. So after ignoring the linebacker, he also says, I'm going to ignore the position right behind them, the safeties. Let's both Marcus Epps and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson walk out the door. And I was okay with going with Reed Blankenship at the one safety position. But then what Howie Roseman tried to do at the other safety position was more dumpster diving. More let's bring in guys that nobody else wants. Terrell Edmonds. Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was their starter last year. They just let him walk. The Steelers weren't going to let him walk out the door and sign a cheap one-year deal somewhere else if he was any good. And look where that got us. Where's Terrell Edmonds now? They traded him to the Titans. He also signed Justin Evans. Justin Evans hasn't been able to stay healthy since he came into the league in 2018. Those were the two guys we went into the season with this year as potentially being our starting safeties. So you ignore the linebackers. You ignore the safety position. And then when it became clear you have a real problem at safety, you have to make a trade. And you go and you get Kevin Byard, who was a great player a couple of years ago, not the same guy. You made a mistake in ignoring those positions. And when people say you can't pay everybody, but then what he did is he decided to put his money into two aging corners. Now, I know you could never have expected James Bradberry to take the step back that he did. And Darius Slay was playing well before he got hurt. But this is the problem with relying on two 30-year-old corners. You risk injury, like you saw with Darius Slay. You risk losing a step, like we've seen with James Bradberry. And as much as all of us celebrated those moves, we're not the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not our job to analyze the talent and the contracts and decide who you're going to pay. And now they gave so much money to James Bradberry that he's going to be back next year because you can't take the $17 million cap hit next year. That's on Howie Roseman. And the reason that they're in this position is not only because they've ignored linebacker and safety, it's because Howie Roseman cannot draft defensive talent. He can't do it. Now, I'm excited about this year's draft picks. I'm giving Howie Roseman some credit that maybe finally, after 4 years of disaster in the draft, that maybe he hit on some players this year. I think Keely Ringo has a lot of potential. I think Sidney Brown has a lot of potential. Obviously, Jalen Carter has a lot of potential. But for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, you can't rely on 3 rookies on the defensive side of the football to carry you to a Super Bowl. There's going to be ups and downs. We've already seen it with Sidney Brown and with Keely Ringo. He had 2 good games, didn't have a good game yesterday, Keely. You've seen big plays from Sidney. You've seen missed tackles from him. This is what you expect from a 3rd and 4th round draft pick. But you look at the years before he just drafted those guys, and he's missed way too often. Let's look at last year's draft. He takes Jordan Davis in the 1st round. I'm not sure about Jordan Davis, guys. I don't know what we have in Jordan Davis. I was excited about him when they drafted him. He had an up and down year last year. He wasn't healthy. He came in this year. He had a couple good games early. He has really fallen off. He drafts Nakobe Dean. We're getting nothing from him. Maybe we get something next year, but you're not going to be able to rely on him this year. He drafts Kyron Johnson at defensive end. Kyron Johnson's on the Steelers now. And this defensive line, we didn't even talk about that. I talked about linebacker. I talked about safety. Let's talk about this defensive line that's supposed to be the strength of this team. You look at these edge rushers. Where's all the depth we kept hearing about? They have Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, and both of those guys have now played career highs in snaps because they have nobody else on the edge. After Reddick and Sweat, there's no one. Brandon Graham's not playing as many snaps. He's getting up there in years. You brought back Derek Barnett. You had to cut him because he was unhappy. You drafted Nolan Smith. He's giving you nothing. Where's all this depth at the edge? You have none. And the reason you have none, and the reason you have no linebacker, and the reason you have no safeties is because you haven't been able to draft for 4 straight years. Just talked about Kyron Johnson. They drafted to be an edge. He's on the Steelers. Let's go to the year before. They take Milton Williams in the 3rd round. I'm okay with that. The one thing that Howie Roseman has done with a little bit of success has been D-tackle. Milton Williams, maybe Jordan Davis, obviously Jalen Carter. Outside of D-tackle, it's been swings and misses time and time again. After Milton Williams, they take Zach McPherson. Promising coming in this year. We didn't know what we were getting. Hasn't played a lot. Blows his Achilles in training camp. They take Teron Jackson at defensive end. He's on the practice squad. With the little depth you have at defensive end, Teron Jackson's on the damn practice squad. They take Jacoby Stevens, who was a safety out of LSU. They wanted him to play linebacker. He's not even in the league. They take Patrick Johnson at defensive end. He didn't play any defensive snaps this season until last week. He's giving you nothing. Let's go to the year before. The year they took Jalen Reagor in the first round. Everybody remember that one? They took Davion Taylor for a linebacker in the third round. He's out of the league. They took Kevon Wallace at safety. He's on the Titans. Sean Bradley, linebacker, special teamer, out for the year. Casey Toohill, defensive end. He's on the Washington Commanders. You guys seeing a theme here? He can't draft defensive players. And when we talk about an offense that has the personnel that this offense has, and you have that much money invested in your offense, you need young defensive players contributing to your team on their 4 or 5 year rookie deals. That's how the salary cap works. You have to have young players who are still on those rookie contracts contributing to your team, and they've struck out every damn time on defense. Let's go to the year before, 2019. He drafts another defensive end. You ready for this name? Sharif Miller. He's out of the league. Outside of defensive tackle, you have to go all the way back to 2018 when they took Josh Sweat to find a player that is contributing to this defense that Howie Roseman drafted. And then you have young guys, Marcus Epps, an undrafted guy that you helped develop. TJ Edwards, an undrafted guy that you helped develop. And you let him walk out the door? With your track record of drafting defensive players, you let these guys walk out the door? That's why when I have people coming at me, when I say that I blame Howie Roseman for where this defense finds itself, I'm giving you facts. How can you deny that the defense is in the state it is in because Howie Roseman's neglect of the linebacker position, the safety position, and the inability to draft young defensive players that can make an impact on a team? Maybe got lucky this year. I got hopes for Sidney Brown and Keely Ringo and Jalen Carter. But for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, you cannot rely on that many rookies on the defensive side of the football. You need second, third, and fourth year players who are still on those rookie contracts contributing to your defense. That defense is on Howie Roseman. And not saying I was a huge fan of Sean Desai, but that's why when it happened, I did a tweet that said, you have a defense that lacks personnel and an offense that has all the personnel in the world, but you make a change to your defensive coach, but keep the offensive coaches the exact way you've had it all season long? How does that make sense to anybody? Sorry, guys. Getting all worked up on New Year's Day here. But let's move on, because the Dallas Cowboys gave the Philadelphia Eagles a gift on Saturday night. Or I should say the Detroit Lions gave the Eagles a gift by Dan Campbell going for 2, which I supported, loved the aggressiveness. But then once that play gets called back on a penalty, you go for it again. There's another penalty, this time on the Cowboys. So you've clearly now used 2 of your best 2-point conversion plays, and you go for it again. Didn't like that aggressiveness. Thought that turned to recklessness on the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell's part. So they give us what we thought was a gift. All the Eagles had to do was beat the Cardinals and then beat the Giants the last game of the year, and you were going to win the NFC East for the second year in a row. You were going to be a number 2 seed, opening up at home. Well, now it looks like our Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a 5 seed. And let's be honest, does it even matter? If the Philadelphia Eagles were the 1 seed, would any of you have any confidence that they can do anything in the playoffs with this freaking defense and this offensive coaching staff? Do we really think they're doing anything in the playoffs? I'm not even sure they're going to beat the Giants this week. Let's take a look at that game. In North Jersey, Giants are probably going to start Tyrod Taylor again. I think the Eagles would have a lot better shot against Tommy Cutlets, who shouldn't be an NFL quarterback. But I think Tyrod Taylor could beat this damn team. And I think it's embarrassing that they're only a 5.5-point favorite, the Eagles. They were just, 12-point favorites against the Giants last week? 12-point favorites against the Cardinals on Sunday? You're only a 5.5-point favorite? I know it's on the road. Cowboys are on the road at Washington. They're 14-point favorites, I think. But that game against the Giants probably isn't going to matter. And if you guys haven't been paying attention, the schedule was released. The NFL left the last Sunday of the year open without scheduling the games until yesterday. So the Philadelphia Eagles game, it could have been Saturday or Sunday. They make it the 4:25 game on Sunday because what they're trying to do is make all of the games matter. So the Dallas Cowboys play in Washington also at 4:25 on Sunday, because if the Cowboys somehow lose to the Commanders and the Eagles somehow win in North Jersey against the Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles would win the NFC East, and they would be a 2 seed. They still hold the tiebreaker over the Lions for a 2 seed if the Cowboys lose and the Eagles win. But I'm done worrying about seeding. I'm done caring about any of that because this team's just not good enough. And you look at Tyrod Taylor for the Giants, they could easily beat this Philadelphia Eagles team. Tyrod Taylor threw for over 300 yards, ran for 40 yards in a close game against the Los Angeles Rams this weekend. 26-25 they lost. Close game. And you can't even look at the numbers anymore. As bad as the Giants' offense has been, you can't look at the numbers because this Eagles defense just can't stop anybody. They're in the bottom of almost every single meaningful category. So we'll see if this team comes out and plays hard on Sunday. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's going to be another game after that. Eagles are going to the playoffs. No matter what happens in Week 18, the Eagles will go to the playoffs. If they're a 5 seed, they'll probably open up on the road against the NFC South. Could they win that game? Sure. Is it going to matter? No. This team's not beating the Cowboys. They're not beating the 49ers. And it's just really frustrating for a team where we had such high hopes. And it is criminal, in my opinion, that Howie Roseman ignored positions on a team with Super Bowl aspirations. It really is. But, guys, I appreciate you guys. I see you all in the chat. I can't get to everybody. I got chats going on TikTok. I got chats going on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So I can't get to all of you, but I do appreciate all of the engagement. I really do. Smash that like button for me. Make sure you're following me everywhere. We are only getting started, guys. This has been a great year. 2023 was an amazing, amazing year. And I appreciate every single one of you who has taken the time to engage with me, like my content, watch any of my shows. I really do appreciate it. 2023 has been better than I ever could have imagined, and we are only getting started, guys. Only getting started. I have big things planned for 2024. So stay tuned for that because it's going to be an even better year in 2024. Can't make promises it's going to be better for the Eagles, but I can promise it's going to be better for us because I've said this to you guys before. This is our show. This is our social media channel. This is just as much yours as it is mine. I love the engagement. I love the comments. Keep engaging with me. Keep sending me DMs. A lot of you guys send me DMs asking me questions or telling me your opinions on things. Love it. So keep it coming, guys. I really do appreciate it. And like we end every Legal Hands to the Face show, we do a little Philadelphia Eagles trivia. No Googling. I know there's people in the chat who love to cheat when I do my Philadelphia Eagles trivia, but we got a little bit of a Philadelphia Eagles trivia today. And there's some people calling for Nick Sirianni's job. I'm not there. Okay, I don't think that you get rid of a guy yet. It's been bad. I have my concerns for the first time ever about Nick Sirianni, but I don't think you make a knee-jerk decision and move on from a guy who's had the success he's had. It's been bad. It's been ugly. I understand the people who are saying we should move on. I just don't think you do it yet. But that's what had me thinking with my Eagles trivia today. So I went back and looked. So the Philadelphia Eagles, in their history, have had 24 head coaches. And amazingly, there's only 3 head coaches in Philadelphia Eagles history who have coached for more than 5 seasons on the Eagles sidelines. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, since 1969, they've only had 3 coaches. The Eagles have had 14 since 1969. But there's only 3 coaches in Philadelphia Eagles history who have coached more than 5 seasons. Who are they? If you guys are here in the chat, take a guess at who the 3 head coaches are. And you can throw out one name if you have it. One of them should be really easy, guys. But there are only 3 coaches in Eagles history. And I see Craig Anderesh on Instagram say Vermeil, Reed, and Kotite. So you got 2 of them right. Dick Vermeil coached 7 seasons for the Eagles. Andy Reid, obviously, 14 years. But who's the 3rd? This is a tough one. I see people saying Kotite, incorrect. Buddy Ryan, incorrect. Buddy Ryan only had 5. Kotite only had 4. Vermeil had 7. That's one of them. Andy Reid's obviously the other, but who is the 3rd coach? It's going back some time. And he coached for 10 seasons for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't see anybody getting this. Come on, guys. You got to know your Philadelphia Eagles trivia. Countrywide Eagles podcast comes through with the answer. It is Greasy Neal. Greasy Neal, going way back, coached 10 seasons for the Philadelphia Eagles. But it's crazy to me when you look at the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. They've had a lot of coaches, and not many of them last. So a lot of people calling for Nick Sirianni's job. He's coached 3 seasons. Who would have thought Dougie P would have been fired only a couple years after he won a Super Bowl? So you never know. You never know. And shout out to my man, Countrywide Eagles podcast. He's trying to have me as a guest on his show. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll get on the Countrywide Eagles podcast. So good to see you, Dennis. But guys, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of this season. All the expectations we had for this team, unfortunately, reality is setting in. I know there's the diehard fans who say, we still believe. But if you take a step back and you don't look at this team with green-colored glasses and you look at the reality of this football team, they're not doing anything this year. They're just not. They're not well coached. They lack personnel on defense. There's cracks in the culture. The locker room doesn't seem to be as tight or strong as it used to be. There are a lot of issues. And to think that they're going to get that fixed with 1 week left in the season. Love to see it happen. It's just not. And I said to you guys last week before we end the show that there were 3 things that I wanted to see to bring back hope. I was hopeful that the offense could dominate for 4 quarters. Well, that hasn't happened. I was hopeful that maybe Shaq Leonard and some of the personnel, Avonte Maddox coming back, Keely Ringo playing like a stud, maybe the defense could take a step forward. Well, that hasn't happened. And then I was hopeful that maybe the 49ers would stumble down the stretch. And they haven't looked great the last 2 weeks. But this Eagles team's just not good enough. And I hate to end the podcast on that note, guys, but I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what I see and what is reality. And unfortunately, it's going to be a long offseason with a lot of questions because I think you're going to lose a couple of these veterans. There's a lot of decisions to make with some of these contracts. Not a great way to start the year. But I appreciate you guys. Smash that like button on your way out. And like we end every show, I'm going to give it to you, although it's not going to have a lot of emotion today. As always, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.